The United States of America is actively destroying the Iranian fleet. The Americans have already sunk a frigate and the newest corvette of the Iranian Navy. Judging by the rate of use, it seems that Iran is starting to run out of ballistic missiles. Oil prices stopped rising after the initial shock. The main problem for the entire region remains the Shahed drones. The Americans openly admitted that they can't shoot down all the drones. And that's why America and the Persian Gulf countries have officially asked Ukraine for help. The geography of the war is expanding. Iran has attacked Turkey and Azerbaijan. Meanwhile, Iraqi Kurds have launched a ground offensive in the northwest of Iran. That's a brief summary of the sixth day of the war in the Middle East. But later in this broadcast, together with you, we will briefly but specifically summarize another day of the war in Iran. I'm Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like the broadcast, and leave your comment under this video. By the way, this really helps a lot in promoting content on YouTube, and I will be grateful to you for that. And subscribe to my Telegram channel Peachy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So now briefly and in order. Iranian missile forces continue to strike Israel, US military facilities, and the energy sector of the entire region. The radars of the THAAD air defense system, which the US deployed in the Middle East relatively recently, have been hit. The US Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar and US naval bases in Bahrain have been heavily shelled. In addition, the production of liquefied natural gas in Qatar and oil extraction at the largest Armila field in Iraq have been halted. But Iran, despite all this, apparently has started to run out of ballistic missiles. Why do I say this? Because the rate of ballistic missile use dropped from 350 missiles on the first day of the war to 50 missiles on days 4, 5, and 6. Probably it's not just about the number of missiles, but also, importantly, about the launches, which the US and Israeli air forces have been taking out. They're destroying them by the dozens. And now there are a lot of videos showing the destruction of the launches themselves, so there might still be missiles left, but there's nothing left to launch them from.
Hearing Anashi Metzrev, please. Kibalte.
Besides missiles, the main problem for the entire region is actually the Shahed drones. Iranian drones once again attacked the Saudi Aramco oil refinery in Ras Tanura yesterday. It is noted that the attack on Saudi Arabia was repelled. But here I can't help but recall that Pakistan had previously urged Iran to calm down and not strike Saudi Arabia, because Pakistan actually has a mutual defense pact with this country. And Pakistan will have to. They will have to enter the war, but they haven't entered yet. It is also worth noting that Iran is trying to take down the internet worldwide because Shaheds are now actively attacking Amazon data centers in the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. One of these strikes on Monday caused a large fire and a disruption in operations, and Amazon is now forced to move many tasks to other servers, which is significantly slowing down their work. Americans have already openly admitted today that dealing with Shaheds is much more difficult than with missiles. They say there are just too many of them and you can't have enough missiles to counter them all. And now Senator Mark Kelly is warning that at some point this will simply become a mathematical problem. And today, even US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Dan Kane also publicly admitted that these Shahed drones are creating a bigger problem than expected. It is known that the drones fly low and slow, and this feature makes them more capable of evading air defense systems than ballistic missiles. And here I'll quote that very Senator Mark Kelly. Iranians have the capability to produce many Shahed drones, medium and short-range ballistic missiles, and they have huge stockpiles. So at a certain point it becomes a mathematical problem. How are we going to replenish ammunition for air defense? And today Washington officially turned to Ukraine for help. And now the US and the Gulf countries are asking Ukraine to sell them Ukrainian P-Vansen interceptor drones, which people simply call P-Sun. And President Zelensky instructed the heads of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Defense, the National Security and Defense Council, and the military command to work out options for helping the monarchies of the Persian Gulf, saying, if we can, let's help, but without harming Ukraine's defense capability. Ukrainian experts' on-site work is under discussion. President Zelensky ordered it must not impact Ukraine's defense capability. Also, Zelensky made another proposal. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Defense, and National Security Council are developing options for the monarchies. This is for the Patriots. We have the Shahed interceptors, Pisuns, Pivansun. So if you want, well, we can exchange. Or make Putin calm down already, then our experts and military. The Gulf. President Zelensky directed the National Security and Defense Council and Military Command to develop ways to help the monarchies, including Tehran. According to the Red Crescent, the number of people killed in Iran is 787. The Israeli army has also engaged in ground combat with Hezbollah militants in southern Lebanon. The main fighting is taking place in the area of the border villages, by the way, in the same place as in 2024. The Gulf. President Zelensky reported the loss of several vehicles. At the same time, Israeli aircraft are bombing the southern region. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Defense, National Security and Defense Council, and the military command are to work out options for assisting the monarchies. In addition, there have been reports about the beginning of an offensive by Iranian Kurds in the northwest of Iran. В полной мере. Как оказалось, речь идет о подготовке. And President Zelensky instructed the Ministry of Defense, the National Security and Defense Council, and the military command to work on coordinating an attack by Kurdish separatist units on Iran from within Iranian territory, to the Kurdistan monarchies where they are now based. The Iranian Air Force is currently striking their positions in Erbil and Suleimania, trying to prevent a possible offensive on their territory. The Gulf. And the President of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. In addition, the death of Mojtaba Khamenei, the son, has been denied, as well as reports that Mojtaba Khamenei has already chosen a new foreign ministry, Ministry of Defense, National Security and Defense Council, and Military Command, to work out assistance to the monarchies so as not to expose the new supreme leader, of the Gulf. And President Zelensky instructed the Foreign Ministry, the Ministry of Defense, and the National Security Council. Meanwhile, Donald Trump announced that he himself should choose the new leader of Iran. Military command must develop assistance options. Meanwhile, the United States of America sank an Iranian frigate in the Indian Ocean. The Iranians fired on the American destroyer Arleigh Burke and launched a series of missiles toward the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln. It is unknown whether there were any hits or damage. To go into a bit more detail, the day before a U.S. submarine, Zelensky gave instructions to the Ministry of Defense and the Lanka Council. 87 people died, 61 are missing, and 32 were rescued. And options for monarchies. I should note that this is the first time since 1982 that a submarine has sunk an enemy ship. In 1982, the British sank the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano. For the Americans, this is the first time since 1945 that a submarine has sunk a ship. And President Zelensky instructed the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Defense, and the Sayed Shirazi corvette, which was launched literally in February 2024. In total, the US and Israel have confirmed the destruction or damage of at least 11 Iranian military assets. The command was instructed to work out options for assisting the monarchies as the conflict is now expanding. NATO intercepted an Iranian ballistic missile that was heading toward Turkey. Later, Azerbaijan stated that Iran had attacked their territory as well. These are now the 12th and 13th countries directly affected by the war. And now, a number of international media outlets have started to stir up the topic of a resource war of attrition between the US and Iran. For example, the Turkish agency Anadolu claims that in 6 months of war, the US has lost military equipment worth $2 billion, including those 3 F-15 aircraft and the ANFNS-132 early warning radar station. Bloomberg writes that the Iranians are using drones costing $20,000 against American Patriot PAC-3 air defense systems, which launch missiles costing $4 million each. At the same time, only about 600 of these interceptor missiles are produced each year. Meanwhile, it remains unknown how many missiles Iran has left in its arsenal. Previously, by the way, this arsenal was estimated at 2,000 missiles. At the same time, a battle is heating up for the Strait of Hormuz. Both sides are providing completely contradictory information. The Americans claim that they have sunk 17 Iranian ships and have practically destroyed their fleet in Hormuz. The Iranians claim to be blocking the strait and say they've already hit over 10 oil tankers enforcing the blockade. But it can be said that the Strait of Hormuz is still paralyzed. Only 5% of the pre-war traffic passes through the strait. This is according to Bloomberg. Trump's promises to do something have not led to anything so far. That's why the cost of insurance for ships in this area has sharply increased 12-fold. And one more country is de facto entering the war. France is deploying the aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle as well as the frigates Tonnerre and Languedoc to the shores of Cyprus to protect the British military base on this island, which the Iranians targeted with missiles. Well, that's a brief summary of the results of the 6th day of the war in the Middle East. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like the video. If you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support our channel financially, either through your donation or a paid membership. You can do this using the links and details in the description of this video, or by scanning the QR code on your screen. I will be grateful for any support you provide. That's it for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.